There ain't no rest for the wicked. Money don't grow on trees. I got bills to pay, I got mouths to feed. There ain't nothing in this world for free. I can't slow down, I can't hold back, though I wish I could. Oh, there ain't no rest for the wicked until I close my eyes for good. Sign, sign everywhere, sign blocking up the media, making my mind. Do this, don't do that, can't you hear the sign? The sign says I got membership card to be inside. Burp. Oh, you can't hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Someone said they couldn't hear me. Okay, good. And I'm not roboting right now, right? The robot sound is gone? Because I think I fixed that somehow. I clicked on a thing and it fixed it. I haven't had that problem for a couple of episodes. I'm very happy about that. Good, good, good. Hello, everyone. I know it's been a while. I've been out of town. Sort of took a break. Honestly, I was feeling a little gassed, so it was nice to do a recharge. Uh, Talk a little bit about the rest of the three body problem, although honestly, I don't know. The book did not really impress me that much. I got to say, a lot of it goes down to just the prose. I get it. It's not an English language book and it's been translated and it's a different context, but it's honestly, some parts are a slog to get through. And the ideas are interesting. I'll probably read all the books because they keep saying that they get crazier as they go on. So I'm going to read the rest of them. But the first one, it really did just seem like more setup than anything. So just to recap, uh, when we last talked about it, they set up the situation where China, since the Cultural Revolution, was looking for sending out signals to aliens, and they actually got a response. And then this lady who basically had been traumatized by the Cultural Revolution and said, "Fuck you, Earth. Fuck you, humans. We're gonna tell these aliens to come and kill all of us." And now, the current day, there's this secret society of people who've been in contact with this alien civilization who plan to come to Earth. It's going to take them 400 years to get here, and they're going to wipe us out and take over because they live on a planet that is captured by a solar situation where instead of being in a stable relationship to one celestial body like Earth, they are trapped between three three stars, and as such are captured by the three body problem, which is that when you get two celestial bodies in a relationship to one another, they have very predictable paths. But if you add a third one, it becomes impossible to predict. There's no rhythm to it. It's essential randomness, and so that means that these poor aliens and this poor society have gone through hundreds and hundreds of civilizations, getting to a points of development and then just being destroyed because eventually the sun just shows up and cooks everything or pulls the planet apart. And somehow, though, and this is really the thing that strains credulity the most, they are, at the time that they're in contact with Earth, they are an advanced civilization that has somehow been able to build on all of those previous civilizations and is in the lookout for a new home since they are waiting eventually for that situation to degrade and to get absorbed by one of these flailing suns. And is it Benioff and Weiss are doing it? Oh, hell yes. Those guys. Well, at least this will be a contained narrative, right? Like they don't have to worry about having to go beyond what the author has written. So, and we know that that was their real problem because as much as those last seasons are dog shit, when they were here adhering to the books, I can't say that I didn't enjoy them. And the whole book basically just sets up this situation, and then it ends. So I've got to read the next one now, which I am. I just started it. When I finish it, I'll talk about it maybe. But for now, I'm not that interested. And it is, uh, yeah, a little hard to get through the prose. I got to say. Uh, so far, though, like in terms of interesting ideas, the stuff in the three body problem, a big point that seems to be made is that you cannot assume that there will be any continuity between human experience and the experience of a different uh, conscious life form that would emerge out of different scenarios. Uh, and I got to say, uh, the premise of aliens would just treat us like bugs, it's kind of undermined by the fact that they're in direct contact with humans, because you say, to us we would appear like bugs, but we don't talk to bugs. We don't write letters to bugs saying you're bugs. Like the fact that we can't communicate with animals is one of the things that makes us able to differentiate ourselves and imagine ourselves in a superior position. The whole point here is that they're in constant human conflict or contact. So I don't know. Doesn't seem like you can really sustain that, but I don't know. We'll see. It's very. I got to say, it's interesting that the time scales they went with in this, because by the end of the first book, humankind is now aware that okay, there's this alien invasion fleet and it's coming and it's going to be here in 450 years. And that is kind of an interesting question of like how do you deal with that? But I don't know, as an American, it seems weird because like how many Americans think there's going to be anybody around for the aliens to kill in 450 years? Like we don't even have enough investment in the Earth as a continuing concern, regardless of where we are on the political spectrum. We all have our different eschatological fantasies, our different ideas of why it's all going to fall apart. Wokeness run amok, for example, being one of the genius theories. But there is certainly a conviction that transcends partisanship that says we're we're not going to make it to 400 fucking years. Uh, there's one cool part. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't read it. That's sort of a ghost ship type deal where they use microfibers to just chop a boat in half and kill everybody on it. That's pretty cool. And I can imagine that being cool in an adaptation, a live action version. So I will keep reading it and I'll keep people abreast. But I haven't really found much to sink my teeth into in that first one, I have to say. But mostly just want to say hello. Hi. I hope people are watching. I hope people are listening to Hell on Earth. It's finally out. I think it's going pretty well. I actually listened to it. I never was able to bring myself to listen to Hell of Presidents because I sound so stupid to myself. I listen to myself and I'm like, shut the fuck up, make a point. And I get it's different if you haven't heard it, but like for me, I can't handle my extemporaneous speech. But in this one, since we wrote it, I've actually been able to bring myself to listen to it, and I gotta say, I think we did okay. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out so far. I mean, it doesn't help that I have a very unpleasant voice, just this incredible nasal honk. It's helped that the Chris is there with his mellifluous, sonorous voice. Ah, oh, thank you. It is wild that I became a professional broadcaster with my voice. Wouldn't have made it on radio days, that's for sure. There's not enough Margraves. Sorry. We'll try to find some more Margraves for you in the future episodes. It's just a marquee. It's just a German. It's the German spelling and pronunciation of the marquis, which is also a in French and English nobility. March. That's marcher. You're on the border. It's like, hey, we gotta secure this area from the Welsh or the Poles, and you secure it for us, and you get the feudal rights over the area. Yes, the Marquis of Queensborough. People are asking about video games, and I gotta say, I just have a hard time. I have a hard time with them. Can't do it. Rank the states of the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, that's interesting. Uh, hmm. Well, Bohemia has probably got to be number one just because it's a kingdom. It's the only kingdom within the Holy Roman Empire. So that makes it, I mean, that's just pimpish right there. I mean, Bavaria is cool, of course. You got the beer drinking and whatnot, but they didn't even get an electoral title until after the 30 Years. They didn't even get a electoral vote until after the war. Lame, pathetic. If you can't vote for the emperor, what are you even doing? Well, the Bohemians went back to being Catholic because they got too cocky. It's really, they have no one else to blame but themselves. They started the entire thing by throwing those dudes out the window. And it got them having even their little precious ultraquist church taken from them. Getting cocky with it. George Santos would not be a prince of the Holy Roman Empire. He would be a guy who borrows a bunch of money to start an army and then just like leaves with the strongbox and then lets them all riot and mutiny, which happened a lot. He could definitely be a bishop. That was a great job for a complete scam artist. So somebody says, and then I've thought about this actually. Why is there so little media set in the early modern era? And I do think it's because it is this weird dog's breakfast liminal space between modern concepts of society and organization and military conflict and the medieval feudal era. Like you've got like battles during the 30 Years War, for example, guys showed up with fucking suits of armor and like maces and stuff. And also there's a bunch of guys with guns. That's it hits the eye wrong. It's for an audience that is not able that doesn't know about this period. It just feels like a bunch of anachronisms smashing into one another. People much prefer high if they're gonna do that era. They want to do high Middle Ages, not knights, all that shit. Yeah, this is perfect. You either want Braveheart or The Patriot. You don't want both, and that era really is both. It's got both that. It's got all that stuff at once. Yeah, like stuff that happens during early modern is almost all like about it's Shakespeare or like Elizabethan court drama. That's about it. And there, that could realistically be any time because it's still a bunch of people in absurd outfits sitting around. Oh, somebody's asking about Catherine Medici. We kind of sped over it because the French Wars of Religion, as we said on the show, could be its own series. And it's very, very Game of Thrones. It's got all your Gambo twists and turns that you'd want. Tons of red wedding style situations. Uh, but as a result, you kind of have to glance over it. But suffice to say that she was the regent for her sons, and they were all kids or dopes, and she was basically running the show until towards the end when her son Henry III actually did assert himself and then got fucking assassinated for his trouble. So maybe you should have listened to mom. The idea of a guy's in knight's suit of armor charging up to an infantry formation, shooting a pistol and riding away. That was one of the innovations of the Dutch. It was a technique where you would have a line of horsemen just go up, ride up to the opposing infantry, fire their pistol, then then ride back in like a hook formation. The caracole, that's it. Yeah, we are going to have guests. We're going to have a supplementary appendix series of interviews when we're done to kind of fill in some of the blanks. Like we're going to have Patrick Wyman is going to be on to talk finance, to talk the economic revolution. Uh, and we'll have a few more. We haven't lined everybody up else yet, but it'll be good because we're going to have Eleanor Janega on to talk about like daily life, which we don't really get to on the show. Like how it was to actually live during this period. Um, and then we got a few more. So I'm happy about that because even as I'm enjoying listening to it, I note where we missed stuff. I note where like we've. But if we're going to have a thing that holds together as a narrative, it's going to be mostly a project of uh, kicking things out and maintaining sort of a streamlined shape. But the interviews will give us a chance to, for things that people have more questions about, address them. And then we hope to do a bonus episode at the end of the whole thing that will be a question and answer. We'll solicit questions for people who have specific uh, clarifications. I don't know if Hello Presidents will ever be put on Patreon. I do know that if you go to a certain website where you can watch videos and you put it in there, you might find it. Uh, it is wild how few movies there are about this period. Someone's asking. There's this movie, The Last Valley, with Michael Caine that is pretty bad. If anyone's ever seen it, it's got a few moments. It's generally though kind of embarrassing, uh, especially Michael Caine's German accent, which is one of like two times in his entire career he tried to do anything other than sound Cockney. But there's stuff during the period, but not that event really. It's very interesting that way. This convulsion, that took over half the continent never really became a in America certainly, but like even I'm wondering, are there German films? I got to assume that Germans made some movies about it, but I've never seen one. Yes, Pornhub. That's the website I'm referring to. Yeah, Germans get slept on. I mean, it really is the crucible for much of modernity there. And the 30 Years' Wars and its result and its consequences are really a big part of the reason that Germany ends up not being the place where modernity is fully baked. There is a Martin Luther movie. I've never seen it though, starring Joseph Fiennes as Martin Luther. It's just called Luther. I haven't heard anything good about it, but it does exist. Wait a minute. There's a TV. Oh, okay. I was confused. Yes, the Idris Elba show. That's not actually about Luther. Hilarious. The only movie I know of that really does a good job of dealing with the mercenary warfare, not of this period, but the generalized like mercenary warfare of uh, of the era and going earlier, is Paul Verhoeven's Flesh and Blood. If anyone has seen that, that's about uh, Rutger Hauer plays a mercenary captain in the Italian wars who's like moving around his loyalties. And one of the things that made the Italian war so horribly wasteful is that there were plenty of opportunities for one side or another to gain something like a victory that were thwarted by the fact that it was not in the interest of any of these mercenary captains who were known as condottieri, which is Italian for contractor, to end the war. And it was also not in their interest to risk the armies that they had put together in open battle. So they would just sort of dick around and despoil the countryside for long periods of time. And that is one of the real downfalls of the Italian city-state model, which otherwise did a lot to build uh, economic institutions that were incredibly precocious for the period, but they also ended up having to rely on foreign military uh, contractors and mercenaries because their base population was all busy making fucking money. So then the big boys came down and just fought over it for 100 years, and all that energy moves up the Rhine. Star forts are cool. It's true. If you've ever been to uh, a place that's got them, they're pretty neat. You got that angled bastion. That's right. There is this Spanish movie called Captain Alisteri. That's there's also is there a battle? It's about Rocroi, right? Which is or Rocroi rather. Sorry, the Battle of Rocroi was between the French and Spanish, and is sort of considered the last stand of the Tercio, the Spanish Tercio formation before it had to be uh, phased out. Ooh, what country would I want to live in during the 30 Years' War? Well, the easy answer is the United Provinces. Because the 30 Years' War is happening at the exact same time as the Dutch Golden Age. They're technically fighting a war for their survival with Spain, but the lines of that battle are well away from Amsterdam, for example. They spend the entire war making money. The tulip mania that is famously considered, the first modern speculative bubble, occurs during the 30 Years' War. That's how fucking mint things were in the United Provinces. They could speculate on fucking tulips instead of have to worry about an army coming in and despoiling the countryside and making them all starve for the winter. Because that's technically a place that's involved in the war, but has very little danger of involving any of the actual fighting. Yes, the Calvinism is a bummer, but even there you have, other stuff happening because one of the things that Calvinism does is that it creates this space between church and state by necessity because the congregations are jealously guarding their control over church discipline, which means the state ends up becoming alienated to a degree. That's why you get, even at the time that you got all these psycho Calvinists, the Netherlands also becomes known for this hot as a place where religious nonconformity is allowed. In fact, that's one of the big reasons that the pilgrims, many of whom went to the Netherlands to escape oppression by the Anglican Church, end up coming to the New World, not because they were being oppressed in the Netherlands, but rather that it was too fucking permissive in the Netherlands. And yeah, they got Spinoza there. Imagine chiefing loud with Spinoza. Do I wish if I could dress up as a fancy little doppelsonder with a cool arquebus and a big feathered hat? I think that's obvious. Yes. In fact, I wore the feathered hat and the neck ruffle uh, to the live show we did in New York, where we recorded a supplementary bonus uh, prequel episode that we will be releasing. Oh, where would I least like to live? Oh, well, obviously Germany. But not all of Germany got hit as bad. I'd say Bavaria would be where I would like to avoid. The area between Bavaria and Bohemia, that like kind of south central area. No, thank you. That was just getting rid back and forth over and over again. Alsace also, just constant armies tromping back and forth. Uh, Also, um, the Virginia colony would be no fun. New England was actually thriving during this period, and it was one of the few places where Europeans were doing better than average, and were having like eating more than they would have been otherwise. But Virginia at that point was fucking brutal. They didn't really get their shit together until the second half of the century. Oh man, there's so many people who we don't get to mention in this series that I think should be shouted out. I'm always listening and being like, damn it, we should have talked about that person. Let me think of some though. I always assumed the Croatan thing was just that they left. They're like, fuck this, and they went off with some Indians. Uh, you look at the Dutch, and they definitely being the first has definitely paid off for them. Like, they got to hand off their hegemony to the English. They took a bit of a haircut in the 19th century specifically. Like there was a decline in living standards, but not anything like super dramatic. And then in the 20th century, they got all those colonial super. Yes, they got occupied by the Germans, but you know, World War II, everybody had to take it on the chin in Europe at that point. But ever since, they've been fucking cruising. And it seems like they're not racked as much with the misery of having lost an empire the way the English are, probably because it happened so much longer ago. But it does seem like the British, who did get off relatively cleanly, are in the process of destroying themselves out of this perverse sadomasochistic rage at having lost their primacy in world affairs. Yeah, like they had they had Indonesia. They did all kinds of uh, colonial crimes over there. And now, and also thanks to their engineering genius, even though they're below sea level, they don't really have to worry about climate change because if anybody's going to figure out a way to not get swallowed by the ocean, it's going to be the Dutch. Yeah, they've got right wing anti-immigrant sentiment. Sure, of course, everyone does now. That's 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 unavoidable. But they're also not like self-consciously uh, 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 disassembling their state the way that the English are. Yeah, the Dutch farmers are rebelling to save their right to do farming or whatever the hell. I don't know. The Dutch did kick our ass in the World Cup. It's true. I'm trying to think of somebody I missed. How they get so tall is a very good question. They are the tallest people on Earth. I believe the average height, this might be wrong, look it up, because I know a lot of shit in my head that isn't true. There's a lot of stuff I know that is incorrect. I think the average Dutch, I'm going to look it up before I even say it, so I don't want to sound like an idiot. Average Dutch height. Well, thank you for giving it to me in centimeters. I don't know what the fuck that means. Okay, yes, 6'1". 6'1". The average height of a Dutch man is 6'1". That is insane. And I've been there and I've seen it. It's wild. As a tall person, I get used to being the tallest person in a room. And I see people who aren't, even though I don't want to, I get just like reflexive kind of like and I kind of like stand up straighter. It's I'm nothing I'm proud of, but it's definitely a real thing. And I would just be like, in a bar or something and just look at these fucking just giant blonde guys. I guess yeah, I guess all the short Dutch people who got drowned by the uh, by the levees and the dikes and stuff. Mm. Yeah, I guess they've been eating calcium, or I guess they've been eating protein longer than anybody. Ooh, this is a very interesting question. What's the stupidest accent? I obviously it doesn't mean when I think of that, it doesn't mean like actually stupid, like indicative of stupidity. I'm just saying from I'm thinking of it as subjectively. When I hear someone talking that way, the more I assume they're stupid, and the more uh, dissonance it is when they say something that isn't stupid. And somebody yelled Long Island, and that might be number one. It's certainly high. The Long Island accent, it's just, it's very hard to imagine anyone sounding like that and who's not a fucking moron. I actually think like that weird mid-Atlantic, like Baltimore, Pittsburgh, or Philadelphia thing with the small mouth, you know. I think that's cute. I don't think that's dumb. Boston is not a stupid accent. It is a dickhead accent. It makes me think that you're an asshole. But again, that's just media stereotypes. Like people say the South, and some Southern accents, obviously, they talk slow, but I don't know. There's something about Long Island. It's like a conscious, willed ignorance. Of course, not true, but it's my uh, it's my own uh, prejudice. I mean, the accent of my people, I think, is pretty stupid sounding. Like the northern Midwest accent. I mean, Fargo, for example, like those people don't sound that smart. Yeah, that's a good point. That the Wisconsin Minnesota accent is the opposite of the Boston accent in that you assume the person is at least superficially nice. And I would say that like Midwest nice is real, but it's of course not authentic because nothing is. Everyone's performance of self is to some degree self conscious and uh, being triangulated between the people that you know and your expectations. But I do feel like Midwestern niceness is a weapon that is pointed inward at the person who is being nice, as opposed, for example, to Southern niceness, which is a weapon pointed outward at the person who it's being wielded at. I mean, the California accent is pretty dumb. I mean, California speak with the uptalk and everything is associated in many with all of the cliches of vapidity and empty-headedness. Oh, the Chicago accent. Oh my God. We love that one. Freaking Chicago. I'm gonna have some Polish sausage. Watch the Bears game. Chicago really is New York if they'd gotten Polacks instead of Jews. Yeah, Alaskans do sound like they're from the upper Midwest. It's just something about the latitude. I don't know. Oh no, somebody asked what the best accent you can do. I am the worst judge because I think I do a few accents very well, and many people insist to me that I do them very terribly. So I give up. I have no faith in my own work anymore. The Pacific Northwest is the place where there really isn't an accent because it's the last place white people anyway, showed up. It's the last place that you have like a real concentration of people. So it is everyone's from everywhere else. and so it flattens out, and it's concomitant with mass media. Oh man, so the old timey Mid Atlantic accent, my one of my favorite accents of all time. It was not a native accent. It was not an accent that existed anywhere. It was an accent that was taught to actors and broadcasters. It was considered a classy way to speak if you were going to be on the radio, for example. And so that accent from early movies and radio stuff, that is a thing that they made up because they're like, people are going to be hearing this and we don't want to sound like yokels. So they thought this thing up that's kind of English but isn't, and became a accent that people got in the media, but that no one in their day to day lives actually spoke. It's not really British, though, is the thing. That's why it is the transatlantic accent, because it's not quite British, because it does not resemble specifically any actual existing British accents. Maybe Catherine Hepburn. She might have been the only native speaker of transatlantic English. There's probably a few pockets of Connecticut where uh, people were able to put that together. Now, see here, Buster. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all our ships at sea. Well done, press. This is interesting. Someone is saying that Australian news people have a fake accent. And I can believe that because if there's any group of people that are probably collectively embarrassed of the way they talk, it's got to be Australians, right? Because like, you want to talk an accent that kind of makes you sound dumb. Like, right, here we are. Good evening. Local news. Crocodile got loose. He's running rampaging all over the place. Our nair. The way they say no is so funny. Nair. There was a comedian, I think his name was Sean Cullen, that I used to watch when I was absorbing Comedy Central bits instead of a personality as a teenager, who had a good joke where he pointed out that there's no Australian Bond villain because you couldn't take him seriously. James Bond, gonna kill you right now. It's gonna happen. You're gonna die. No one believes that. I do hope we get to tour Australia at some point and just do their dumb voices at them until they have a riot. Ooh, crayon. I say crayon. Many people who I grew up around say crayon. It's like one thing, or crayon rather. A lot of people say crayon. I say crayon. I always said crayon. I always said crayon. But I'm weird. I say February. I say the R in February. The second R. Oh, wait a minute. The first R. No, I see. This is very interesting. Someone says, "Do you say pop?" No, I said soda, and this is a weird quirk in Wisconsin. I don't know if anybody else could back me up here if they're from there, but the counties next to Lake Michigan, up and down, because I'm not from Milwaukee. I'm from like an hour north of Milwaukee, but I'm on the water. The counties next to Lake Michigan, I don't know about Door County, but like up until like the middle of the state, say soda. But as soon as you get inland, like the rest of the Midwest and everything like to the Pacific Ocean, they say pop. Very weird. I used to think it was a Catholic Lutheran thing, but now I have no idea. Did Sean Cullen do the bit about REM singing the Bond song? Yes, and also Dylan. Yeah, it was a great bit. I do have to say I'm biased because I grew up saying soda, but pop sounds dumb to me. You sound like a child. Okay, I don't think I say bagel weird though. That's right. I say it normal, right? I don't even know how the what the Wisconsin bagel is, because that's I just said bagel normal, right? Bagel. That seems see that comes that's not intuitive at all to me. I feel like I should. I grew up there, but I don't say bagel. I say bagel or bagel, bagel. Oh god damn it! Now I'm in my head. How do I say it? Bagel. I'm gonna get some bagels. Now I don't even know how I say it. Bag. Yeah, I'm saying it weird now. I don't even know how those how to say it anymore. About. Now I'm saying bagel. Bagel, right? Bagel. There it is. That's how I say it. And that's normal, right? Bagel. Okay, good. I knew it. I knew I said it normal. You guys got my head. I say it normal. It's a bagel. Fuck off. Never calling it a bagel. That's not how I roll. We did call water fountains bubblers. Apparently, Wisconsin and Western Massachusetts are the only places that do that, and it's because of a company that had a certain branded water fountain that was found in the region. Uh, Also, the only places in the U.S. that have cranberry bogs. Oh, Rhode Island also? Oh, yeah. Well, that makes sense. Australia's calling them bubblers too. Bubbler. Hey, we're gonna drink a bubbler. Gonna go get a drink at the bubbler. Yeah, right. Gonna go down to the gonna have a drink down at the bubbler. That's content right there. Just saying bubbler over and over again in an Australian accent. Oh, it was always a crock pot. A crock pot. I don't know what the fuck a slow cooker is. It was a crock pot. You motherfuckers eating eating out of slow cookers? Get the fuck out of here. It's a goddamn crock pot. The weirdest one, though, and I honestly don't know if this was just my hometown, but we called sloppy joes were called hot tamales. Yeah, we're talking white people shit right now. This is we're real white people hours right now. Clicker. It's the clicker. The remote is the clicker. Also, they were called tennis shoes, not sneakers. Yeah, the hot dish thing is more Minnesota. I never heard anybody talking about a hot dish. I certainly heard about people cooking in a crock pot, though. What did we call immigrants? Buddy, you don't want to know. The only minorities in my hometown growing up were Hmong refugees from the Vietnam War. And it's amazing. They had every single stereotype associated with black people or Latin American immigrants elsewhere. One of the things that really taught me early on that it was mostly bullshit because it's like, this is a coincidence. All these people from all these different parts of the world all have the exact same cultural character defects. Cricks. It's a crick, not a creek. Mostly Chapo's mostly Midwest, except for Will, who's the fancy Upper West Side New York boy. But everybody else is from some Midwestern state. How do I pronounce beer? That's not a weird one. It's beer. How else do you say beer? Milk? Who says milk? I guess I've heard some people say milk, but I don't say milk. I say milk. And yes, crayfish, not crawfish. Core Warsh? Who the hell's that, that thing with the unnecessary R is very interesting. Washington. Where specifically is that? Because I don't even know if it really corresponds to a specific geographic area. If it's like more idiosyncratic. I don't do that. I'm normal. I don't add an R. Okay, so it is just more weirdos who like individually do it rather than a reproduced regional accent. Texas, apparently. Interesting. They say Warshed in Texas. And Iowa, too. See, this is all over the place. I know that Pittsburghers say my car needs washed, which honestly just sounds like you've had a head injury. Like you should go to the doctor if you say something like that. They should give you an MRI. Pittsburgh is one of the funnest accents. Definitely. Go downtown. Go see the Pittsburgh Steelers play downtown. The fact that they say jag off, delightful. The Paris of Appalachia. See, I can't do it. Fine, whatever. Fuck off. I don't know. I'm just trying. I'm just downtown. That's what I said. Fuck off. I do feel like Jagoff should be more universally applied. That should get out of the Pittsburgh ghetto and become nationalized. Is jabroni really a Pittsburgh thing? Interesting. I didn't know that. Somebody asked an interesting question. What if the U.S. had never revolted against England? And the fact is, it's just that's going to happen at some point. And the thing that's going to make it happen, inevitably, it's not slavery like the 1619 people say. It's not taxes and tea duties like the history books say, like the elementary school, like high school history is. It's the Proclamation of 1763. That guarantees some sort of conflict between the colonists and England because it put the colonial interests in expansion in direct conflict with England's presiding national interest in restraining migration and restraining westward expansion of colonists. Uh, that was certainly the thing that pissed off George Washington the most, whose entire career was based on land speculation and required that frontier to continue going out if he was going to keep making that fucking money. But for the English, like it was a cost benefit analysis that told them it is too expensive for us to garrison this frontier when especially since we're not going to be getting the majority of the output here. Like this isn't going to be coming to England, so they had a very vested interest in restraining westward expansion, and westward expansion would not be restrained. And I do think that that is one of the signal problems of the 1619 project is in order to make their case, they have this incredibly specious argument that it was English pressure and threat to end slavery that led to the American Revolution. And that is, you're literally reversing time there to try to take a later emancipatory push, which only makes sense in the context of Napoleonic Wars anyway, and applying it to an era when it has nothing to do, when it is not anything anybody's on the talking, anybody has on the table. Like ending slavery for the English was part of their geostrategic great game with France. This is something that CLR James talks a lot about in the Black Jacobins. And they were able to replace enslaved labor in their colonies with indentured labor from India at that point, which they would not have been able to do during the American Revolutionary era. But they did have a vested interest in restraining colonial immigration westward, and it would not be restrained. None of the forces, none of the burgeoning concentrations of capital in America would have seen that happen. Right, exactly. The U.S. pivoted to India after they lost the colonies. Like that entire thing is predicated, the entire turn against slavery is predicated on them losing the colonies in the first place. I have not read the Dominion of the Draka books, but I did like one time find out about them, and I like through clicking on Wikipedia, and I did like read the lore, and I was intrigued by the idea. Very nerdy, old history stuff where South Africa becomes like turbo Nazi Germany because it gets all of the defeated royalists from the American Revolution and all the defeated Confederates after the Civil War, and just becomes like this self-conscious white murder state that becomes super highly technologically advanced and then beats both the Nazis and the Allies in World War II. But of course, what that is silly because those white states that we actually got were pretty lame and got their asses kicked relatively easily. Is there a single good movie about John Brown? Not to my knowledge. I mean, there aren't that many either. The Road to Santa Fe with Van Heflin and Ronald Reagan as I believe he plays Custer in that movie. The Ethan Hawke one was bad. I will say it. I know some people liked it. I found it pretty shitty myself. Yeah, exactly. If there's a good John Brown movie, it's just Avatar. Isn't it weird that we all learned about Peter Stuyvesant in elementary school or maybe junior high? I've thought about this because we mentioned him a little bit on the Hell on Earth. Why? So do we not all learn this? Because to me, this was a guy who was always in every every single American history textbook. He had a peg leg, and he was the Dutch colonial governor of New Amsterdam who turned over the colony to the English. It surrendered to them, basically. You guys didn't hear Peter Stuyvesant? I wonder if this is a generational stuff thing. And Peter Stuyvesant is a guy who's just like in the curriculum up through like the middle of the 20th century. And so anybody who went to a public school, specific certainly, up until like 1990, got Peter Stuyvesant or 95 or something. And that now in the 21st century, they've like streamlined the curriculum and they got rid of him. And I understand why, because it's weird that it's very weird that he is a guy that they got to tell you about. Or apparently they didn't. They did not tell you guys about Peter Stuyvesant. This is blowing my mind. I have just a distinct memory of in my like sixth grade history textbook this painting of Peter Stuyvesant in a room like looking angry while the Duke of York's flotilla is in the window behind him. Nobody learned about Peter Stuyvesant. Wow. He was a cranky old fuck. He also, right before the British came and took New Amsterdam from him, he went down to Delaware and squatched and took the Swedish colony. Uh, I am, yeah. Uh, the Swedes had a colony, Delaware, and they filled it with Finns because Finland was like a outpost of the nascent Swedish Empire there in the Baltic, and there were these like forest dwelling Finns, and they were basically like pagans. Like they lived by with themselves, and so the Swedes decide, hey, these guys are perfect. We'll send them to the New World to like clear the land. They're woods people. And so they send these Finns to New Sweden, and as almost as soon as they make contact with the local Native Americans, they just join them. They're just like, "Oh, you guys like trees too? Cool," and then they just hang out. But yeah, you can thank the Swedes for why Delaware exists. You can thank the Swedes for Joe Biden and high credit card uh, interest rates, uh, unregulated insurance industry, tax haven. Oh, and Elon Musk buying Twitter. All of that you could blame on the Swedes. Fucking Chancery Court. Yes, if Delaware didn't exist, it would have to be created. It would probably be Rhode Island because it's like it's not the only tiny state that could leverage its regulatory capacity as a uh, uh, value add in the market. It is the Switzerland of America. No, that's accurate. Delaware really has been floating on that first state thing for a long time. Kind of embarrassing. You signed the Constitution first. Congratulations. It's funny. The two tiny states are both notable in constitutional history. Delaware, first state, signed it first. Rhode Island refused to sign it, and it kind of had to be forced to sign it. And other states started yelling at in their print media, yelling at Rhode Island for not signing the damn thing. In fact, they started calling it Rogues Island because they wouldn't sign the fucking Constitution. And part of that is because Rhode Island was the most Simon Pure Federalist stronghold, the one most hostile to any sort of democratic governance, really. And that lasted. for a long time. In fact, it got so bad that there was eventually an armed rebellion in Rhode Island by a guy named John Dorr, known as the Dorr War or Dorr's Rebellion. I'm sorry, Thomas Dorr. Uh, like these guys, they were trying to expand the franchise, and the existing government wouldn't do it, so they rolled a fucking cannon up to the state house. Yes, the Dorr War, Dorr, not Er. The Jimmy Dorr War. They need to be embarrassed though about those New York System hot dogs. I gotta say, I was very excited about the New York System hot dog when I heard about it, just from the name. Then I had one, and I was like, this is only okay. Yeah, East Coast has small states because of when they were founded. They were founded by small groups of colonists who could settle X amount of territory on behalf of Y company with X charter. And then as capacity is built, the amount of land that gets divvied up and the amount of settlers who are coming in to take that land is balloons. Feels like Rhode Island should have more seafood based uh, foods like that are notable and unique. I can't. What do they have? They should have like more. Like they should have their own type of chowder. Does Rhode Island have a chowder? Fried clams. You fry a clam. Wow, amazing. I mean, Maryland's got the blue crabs, so they have that. No seafood. No special seafoods. What the fuck, man? What the fuck? Call them chowder. I'm sorry. New England is too broad of a category. You should have claimed that shit. Should have said Rhode Island clam chowder. Most useless state. That's a tough one. When I think of like just garbage states, Indiana always comes to the top of my mind. Indiana, called the crossroads of America because it's a place you go through to get somewhere more interesting. Delaware, I mean, the thing is, Delaware is generally useful, two of the most evil people on earth. Arizona's got the Grand Canyon. Come on. Have you seen the Grand Canyon? It really is pretty fucking amazing. Somebody asked the worst regional cuisine, though, and I'm thinking about that. I mean, the Midwest is going to be up there just because of how heavy it is. Without like I mean, like Southern and Midwestern food will kill you. It's all like a lot of meat and starch. But Southern food, I don't know. There's more spice. There's more flavor. You got all the different regional barbecues and stuff, soul food. Whereas the Midwest, it's just like German. It's transported German food and just casseroles and shit. Yeah, the Pacific Northwest doesn't have an accent, doesn't have a cuisine for the same reason. Ooh, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is one of like four states I've not been to, and that should say something. I have been, as Johnny Cash said, everywhere. I've at least like spent time in I think like 40, 46, 47 states. The only states that I've not like even put a foot in are Oklahoma, Nebraska, and I think South Carolina and Vermont. Those are the four. On the continent, those freak states, they don't count. I guess, yeah, salmon. The Pacific Northwest would be salmon for now. See how much longer that lasts. I know. I feel like I want to go to Vermont. We were in New Hampshire for the primary, and I kind of wanted to go to Vermont just while I was there, but I didn't have a chance. I mean, now that I've seen Tulsa King, though, I feel like I want a pilgrimage to see the place where Dwight, the General Manfredi, and his troops went to war with Black McAdam. Vermont is an interesting state just demographically. Um, like it's poorer than New Hampshire and more left wing, even though poorer whites tend to be reactionary in their politics. It's not true in Vermont. Maybe just because there's just white people there. I don't know, but it's a fascinating area. What do you think about modern disability politics, Pat? Wow, I'll end on that one. I won't say too much. I don't want to. I don't want to. I mean, anyone who listens to this understands. I'm not going to get canceled. I just don't want to insult people. But I do think that a lot of disability politics is people desperately seeking a subaltern status. Uh, and I say that as somebody who is, I'm sorry, way more disabled than many of the people who I see make it the fulcrum of their political identity. And, like they pitch it as like, well, I have to be the defender, because of how of the trauma that my life has been trying to be different disabled in this country. It's like, not really, not really. And you can't argue that you're part of a community because due to the incredible variety of what it counts to be disabled, I mean, my God, by certain definitions, you could say everybody is fucking disabled in one way or another. That there is no community to speak for. I sure as shit don't feel like I'm part of some community. And yeah, it's like it does feel like it's an online phenomenon more than any expression of the real experience of people. Like, yeah, obviously, you know, uh, capitalism is at war with anybody who is not able to fit as a cog within it. That's true. Yes, read Caliban the Witch and all that. Uh, but as with most things, the way to fight that is to fight capitalism. And trying to play gotcha with people for being discriminating against your disability of whichever one you have is it's a recipe for the opposite of that. It's really just a way for you to be the center of attention and for you to have a cudgel against other people. I just remember finding out that like somebody who was like a big time disability rights person had type 1 diabetes, and I just thought that was funny. I didn't know there's new emotes. All I know is that as somebody who is really only thinks of their disability when forced to by these people trying to turn it into identity in a way that, I mean, identity politics themselves of all stripes are a dead end, including white ones, which like people who say I hate identity politics and then are Republicans. It's like the Republican Party is just a giant ID poll factory, you fucking morons. It's a question of what the identity is. You get an option, you get a pick. Uh, but I have never felt that it is a fruitful way to think of myself and to relate to the world around me. I remember I was a freshman in college, and I had a cane at that point. I had gotten out of my wheelchair that summer, and I had like progressed from braces and crutches to one brace and one crutch to no braces and a cane. And I got rid of the cane by the end of my first semester. But during that first semester, I had a cane, and I was in a class which was down a hill, and I had to walk up and down to the hill. I never complained to anybody about it. It didn't occur to me. Uh, and I went to a class, and at the end of it, the professor stopped me as I was leaving and said, "I want to apologize." And I was like, "Oh, for what?" And he says, "Well, earlier in his lecture, he'd made a reference to someone stumbling around, and he thought that he after he said it, he realized, oh, this guy with the fucking cane, he might be triggered by that." And it had not even, I mean, it had not even crossed my mind as he had said it. Like it had not registered to me. It had not related to me. There had not been an instinctive reaction to me. And I feel like that is where we are now. Everyone is, and they're not doing it on purpose. There's nothing else to do. So focused on ourselves as the only point of meaning in the world uh, that we're compelled to uh, relate everything to ourselves. And that means makes all communication and interaction a fucking minefield. So yeah, you got me to go off there at the end. Thank you very much. But then again, maybe I'm just an Uncle Tom of disabled people. Maybe I'm the Candace Owen of disabled people. All right, so I'll try to get back in the rhythm and do this next week. Maybe I'll have finished the Dark Forest by then. Maybe not, but we'll talk about something. I'll figure something out. Bye bye.